Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everybody, I am Dr. Pushpalata K, Professor and HOD of Anatomy, JSS Medical College, JSS Academy of Higher Education and Research, Mysore. So, today's session we will discuss about the limbic system. So, here is a case scenario. A 25-year-old boy was brought to the hospital after he was assaulted by a mob for eve-teasing and treated. After a few days, parents noticed some behavioral changes in him, like hyperphagia, increased inclination for the opposite sex, following the females, and aggressive behavior, memory changes, and docility when confronted regarding the incident. So, after the end of this session, let us discuss what is the anatomical basis for these signs and symptoms. Okay. So, for the learning objectives for the limbic system, enumerate the parts of limbic system, describe the major connections of limbic system, describe the functions of limbic system, and discuss the clinical anatomy of limbic system. Okay. So, the limbus means a ring. Okay. So, this limbic lobe, which consists of a ring of cortex, okay, that is a group of grey matter, okay, and some of the fibers, they are present outside the corpus callosum at the upper end of the brain stem. Okay. And this is also called as a rhinencephalon, and it is the oldest part of the cortex. Okay. And the neocortex has 6 layers. This is an allocortex and it has only 3 layers. Okay. So, why is it important to study this limbic system? Okay. So, it is the integration of the olfactory, visceral and somatic impulses. Okay. And it is an emotional aspect of behavior. There is a fear and anger, and this is the necessary for survival, like procuring the food and eating, and it is a necessary for survival of species. This is sexual behavior, and it also important in the memory, the recent. Okay. Now, let us see what are the parts of this limbic system. Okay. So, the limbic system, it has a cingulate gyrus. Okay. Then there is a indusium grycium, hippocampus and parahippocampal. So, this forms the hippocampal formation. Okay. So, this is the cortical structures. Then we have the subcortical nuclei. So, that is the amygdala. Okay. And there is a septal region, olfactory area. Okay. Then the mammillary body and anterior nucleus of the thalamus. Okay. And also we have the fiber bundles, that is the fornix, mammillothalamic tract and stria terminalis and the anterior commissure. Okay. So, this forms the parts of the limbic system, the hippocampal formation, amygdala, mammillary body, the fimbria and the fornix. They all forms the parts of the limbic system. Okay. So, now let us study about each part of this limbic system. Okay. So, here the olfactory pathway. Okay. So, where this olfactory area, okay, which was first coined by this Broca's. Okay. So, here what we have, it is the olfactory epithelium is present in the roof of the nasal cavity. Okay. So, that is the olfactory neuroepithelium. Okay. So, here we have the olfactory receptor cells. Okay. So, along with the epithelium, there is a receptor cells are present within this olfactory epithelium. Okay. So, from here what happens, the fibers, they pierce the cribriform plate, okay, and enters into the bulb, the olfactory bulb. Okay. So, where they synapse with the mitral and tufted cells in the olfactory bulb. Okay. So, from here what happens, they form the olfactory tract. Okay. So, this is the primary olfactory neuron. What we see in the bulb is the secondary neurons. Okay. So, from here they form the nerve fibers, form the olfactory tract. Okay. So this, after this what happens, this is divided into medial olfactory stria and lateral olfactory stria. Okay. So this medial olfactory stria, which goes medial to the anterior perforated substance and relay in the olfactory area, medial olfactory area, that is the pyriform lobe. Okay. Whereas the lateral olfactory area, that relay in the primary olfactory cortex, that goes to the lateral to the anterior perforated substance and relay or goes to the primary olfactory cortex. Okay. So, we can see here the olfactory tract. Okay. So, where it relays the pyriform cortex, from there it is connected to the entorhinal cortex, okay, and also to the amygdaloid and also to the thalamus. Okay. So, this is the only pathway where it does not go to the thalamus, directly it goes to the cortex. Okay. As we know, thalamus is the relay station for all the sensation except the olfactory pathway. Okay. So, here we can appreciate the olfactory bulb. Okay. And this is the olfactory tract, it divides into medial and lateral. So, here is the anterior perforated substance. Okay. Now, let us see the amygdaloid body. Okay. So, we know it is a nuclear component here. So, it is a collection of nuclear masses and it is an almond shape, lies in temporal lobe on the anterior part of the roof of the inferior of lateral ventricle. Okay. So, here is the, this is the lateral ventricle, this is the inferior horn. So, it is present on the roof of the inferior horn of lateral ventricle, whereas posteriorly it is continuous with the tail of the caudate nucleus and it forms the stria terminalis. Okay. So, it is present in the roof of the inferior horn. Okay. Now, so how it is connected? Okay. So, this receives input from the olfactory tract and also the pyriform region, that is from the olfactory area. Okay. So, then it is the output is through the stria terminalis. Okay. So, here then it goes and relays. Okay. So, in the anterior part of the hypothalamus and also fibers relay in the habenular nucleus. Okay. That is through the stria medullaris thalami. Okay. So, then also it is going into the septal region. Okay. So, this is the amygdaloid. So, mainly the input is from the olfactory area and outputs to the stria terminalis to the hypothalamus. Okay. Now, this you can see here the amygdaloid is connected with the cerebral cortex, olfactory area, hypothalamus. Okay. Then here to the striatum, from there to the thalamus. Okay. It is also connected to the nucleus of the solitary tract and dorsal nucleus of vagus and reticular formation. So, what happens this, when the amygdaloid is connected with the solitary tract and reticular formation, it receives a gustatory and visceral information and influence the CVS and RS functions. So, this is the importance of this connection. Okay. So, now what is the purpose, what is the function of this amygdaloid is, it control of emotional behavior, the perception of fear, okay, then the smell mediated sexual behavior and also it is the integrative center for endocrine and visceral functions. Okay. And it is also important role in a recent memory. Okay. If there is a bilateral temporal lobe amygdaloid lesion where there is a amygdaloid is not there, then they come with a psychic blindness. Okay. So, where they are able to see the object, but not able to recognize, that is called as a psychic blindness. Okay. So, till now what we have studied is the hippocampus, the parts are where we have the hippocampus formation. Okay. There is a parahippocampal gyrus, there is a fimbria, fornix. Okay. Then we have the mammillary body, amygdaloid, okay, and the cingulate gyrus, indusium, grycium, okay, and the subcallosal area and paraterminal gyrus and anterior commissure. They form the part of the limbic system. Okay. And we have studied the olfactory pathway, that is from the roof of the nasal cavity, okay, the primary olfactory neuron relay in the bulb pierces the cribriform plate, relay in the olfactory bulb with the mitral and tufted cells. Then the olfactory tract is formed, that is divided into lateral and medial olfactory stria. Lateral goes to the primary olfactory cortex, the medial goes to the medial olfactory area. Then the amygdaloid, which receives the connections from the olfactory area through the stria terminalis, it is connected with the habenular nucleus and the hypothalamus and the septal region. Now coming to the hippocampus. Okay. So in this image we can see the hippocampus here. Okay. It is a longitudinal elevation in the floor of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. The hippocampus means a seahorse, okay, and it is a C-shaped, okay, and its outline resembles to the ram's horn. That is why sometimes they call it as a ram's horn or Ammon's horn. Okay, so this is a C-shaped hippocampus, okay, and it is a, when you take the cross section, it is a S-shaped, okay, S-shape, where the superior limb is formed by the hippocampus formation, the middle limb is by the subicular complex and the lower limb is by the parahippocampal gyrus. Okay. So, in the cross section, so the hippocampus looks like a S-shaped. Okay. So, where you can see this is the hippocampus. Okay. You can see at the observe here. So, there is a, the anterior part of it is expanded and you can observe some of the grooves here and the ridges like a animal paw. That is why this part is called as a pes hippocampi, okay, because it resembles the foot of an animal. So, it is called as a pes hippocampi, okay, and whereas the that is the anterior part, where posteriorly it narrows and it ends beneath the splenium of corpus callosum. Here it is the hippocampus, okay. So, this is the cut section where you can observe the hippocampus here, and here the posteriorly it narrows down and ends. You can observe here, okay, and then ends near the splenium of corpus callosum. And here you can see the there is a thin layer of white fibers over the ventricular surface, okay. So, that is called as actually alveus, okay. So, this alveus converge and form the fimbria. So, okay, here at the medial part, this white fibers, okay, that is the ventricular surface, that is called as an alveus, they converge and form the fimbria, okay. And as I said, the regular neocortex has 6 layers, the allocortex, that the hippocampus, has only 3 layers. It has only superficial molecular, middle pyramidal and deep polymorphic layer, okay. So, what is the connection of this hippocampus, okay. So, you can observe here the hippocampus, okay. So, the sole output is from the hippocampus is through the fornix, okay. So, from here what happens, the fibers you can observe here, it goes in front of the anterior commissure, okay. It divides into pre and post commissural fornix, okay. So, the fornix where the fimbria continues as a fornix, okay. There it divides into 2 pre and post commissural fibers, that is in relation with the anterior commissure, okay. The post one relays in the mammillary body. From here the fibers through the mammillothalamic tract go to the anterior nucleus of thalamus, okay, and the pre-commissural fornix goes to the septal area. Okay, so this is the connection of the hippocampus. So, you can see, observe in this flow chart. So, it receives, okay, from the cingulate gyrus, indusium gyrosum, septal nuclei, entorhinal area, dentate and parahippocampal gyrus. This gives output to the habenular nucleus, septal nucleus, tegmentum, thalamus and mammillary body. So, this is the important connection of the hippocampus. What is the function of this hippocampus? Okay, so we have seen lot of connections. So, again it is an integrative center for endocrine and visceral functions, okay. Because it is connected with the hypothalamus, septal nuclei and cingulate gyrus, it plays a major role in emotional status, okay. And it is important in the recent memory, okay. Now, let us see the fibers, that is the fornix, okay. So, this fornix. Okay, it is the large bundle of projection fibers which connects the hippocampus with the mammillary body. Okay, and as I said, it is the sole output system of the hippocampus. Okay, this is arched prominent bundle white fibers, and you can see it is below the corpus callosum at the lower border of the septum pellucidum. You can see, observe here, this is the corpus callosum and this is the septum pellucidum. Here it ends, the fornix ends here. Okay, and the two side, because the right and the left fornix, okay, one for each hemisphere, they fused beneath the middle of the body of the corpus callosum. Okay, so that is the fornix, it is the sole output fibers from the hippocampus. Okay, so this fimbria, okay, so this fimbria continues as a fornix. It divides into two crura, okay, then it unites to form the body, and below the body of the corpus callosum, then it divides into two columns and end in the mammillary body. Okay, so they end at the mammillary body. Okay, so as you can see here, so this is the fornix. It is a C shaped, you can see here, it comes at the splenium, it comes and ends at the mammillary body. Okay, so these parts are, it has got a fornix, has got two crura, then the body and two columns. Okay, as I said, I was telling you there is a recent memory, the function of hippocampus and the amygdaloid. So, what is this circuit? How this circuit is the one which is important. So, this Papez found out this in the 1937, and he named it as a Papez circuit, which is responsible for emotional integration and recent memory. Okay. So, here we can see this hippocampus is connected with the through the fimbria and the fornix. Okay, it is, you can see here, it is coming to the mammillary body. It relays there, and there the again it is connected to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus through the mammillothalamic fibers. Okay, from there it is going to the cingulate gyrus. Again from there it is connected to the, coming back to the hippocampus. So, that is why it is called as a circuit, from hippocampus to the mammillary body, anterior nucleus of the thalamus, cingulate gyrus and back to the hippocampus. So, this circuit or this connection among these structures plays a major role in the emotional integration and recent memory. Okay. To summarize till now, what we have studied is the parts of a limbic system. It is got a amygdala, parahippocampal gyrus, the hippocampus, fimbria, then the cingulate gyrus, okay, then the indusium grycium, then septum pellucidum, then the subcallosal area and the anterior commissure. They all form the part of a limbic system. And the olfactory, from the nasal cavity to the olfactory bulb with the mitral and tufted cells, olfactory tract, medial and lateral. Medial goes to the medial olfactory area, lateral goes to the primary olfactory cortex. Amygdaloid body receives from the olfactory area through the stria terminalis. It is connected to the anterior part of the hypothalamus, the septal area and to the habenular nucleus. Okay. And here the hippocampus, it is through the fornix, okay, it is connected to the mammillary body. From there the mammillothalamic tract to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, and also it is connected to the septal area. Okay. And here you can see, observe the parts of the fornix. Okay. So, where the fornix, the fimbria continues as the fornix, divides into crura, unites to form the body, and again it divides into two columns and end at the mammillary body. Okay. So, now let us discuss the clinical importance of studying the limbic system. Okay. So, if there is a damage to the temporal lobe, okay, and the amygdaloid body is mainly present here, that lead to Kluver-Bucy syndrome. Okay. What happens here in this syndrome is there is an hyperphagia. The meaning is, hyper means the more, eating is more. Hyperorality means, so whatever they feel they want to identify the object or anything, they put it in the mouth, okay. Then that is called as hyperorality. Then there is an hypersexuality, then the psychic blindness, and also lot of personality changes, okay, because there is amygdaloid body, as we have seen the connections of amygdaloid body with lot of other parts of the limbic system and the cortex. So, what is this psychic blindness? When there is a damage to the amygdaloid, okay, there is a visual stimuli is no longer will be paired with the affective response. They can see the object, but they are not able to identify, okay. And if the lateral amygdaloid induces, then the unrestrained eating, that is called as a bulimia. And if the medial part of the amygdaloid is induces, that it induces the anorexia and hypersexuality. So, this with these symptoms we will be able to locate, so which part of this amygdaloid is affected, looking at the features, okay. Then hippocampus can convert the short term memory up to, that is 60 minutes, to long term memory, that is up to many days, okay. So, that is why hippocampus is very, very important in the memory. Removal of the hippocampus either bilaterally, or if there is any bilaterally damage, okay, to the fornix, because that is the sole output, that leads to antegrade amnesia. What does it means? There is a memory prior to the surgery is retained, but after surgery there is no new long term memory can be established, okay. So, that is what happens if there is any damage, bilateral damage to the hippocampus, okay, because the fornix is the sole output. So, if that is damaged, so there is a antegrade amnesia, okay. Let us see, we have seen the case at the beginning of this session, okay. Let us discuss about it, why it is, what are the symptoms. So, as I said, there is a 25-year-old boy who was brought to the hospital after he was assaulted, okay. So, here it is important, there is some damages there, okay, because the mob is assaulted him, and he was treated for that. But after few days, the parents noticed there is some behavioral changes in him, like hyperphagia, okay, and there is an increased inclination for the opposite sex. We know now where is the symptom. So, you can observe here the emotion, the amygdaloid and the hippocampus, they all play a major role in this, okay. So, they are damaged, and there is, because as I said, this is very, very important, the limbic system is important for the retaining the species, right. So, they are attracted to the opposite sex, and if it is damaged and they become aggressive, okay. And so, this is what is the where we need to correlate. So, looking at the signs and symptoms, we should be able to locate which part of this brain is affected. That is why this discussion becomes important, okay. Now, let us conclude, okay. Till now what we have studied is the hippocampus, okay. So, what are the parts of this limbic system? We have the hippocampus, okay. Then you have the indusium gyrus, cingulate gyrus and parahippocampal gyrus, okay. So, they form the limbic gyrus, okay. Then you have amygdaloid, okay. Then the mammillary body, okay, and the septum pellucidum, and also we have the anterior commissure, subcallosal area, okay, and also the fornix and fimbria, they form the fibers, okay. So, they form the part of the limbic system. And the olfactory system. So, here we can see the superior part of the olfactory, okay. So, where we have the olfactory epithelium, that is the primary olfactory neurons, they pierce the cribriform plate and synapses at the olfactory bulb, okay. And then they form the olfactory, the neurons here, the processes forms the olfactory tract that divide into lateral and medial at the anterior perforated substance, okay. So, this area where it is dividing, that is called as the olfactory trigone. So, medial area goes to the medial olfactory area and lateral goes to the primary olfactory cortex, okay. And this is the only sensory pathway does not relay in the thalamus, okay. Now, coming to the amygdaloid. Amygdaloid is it receives from the olfactory area. Through the stria terminalis, it is connected to the anterior part of the hypothalamus, okay, and also to the habenular nucleus and to the septal region, okay. And here you can see, observe the hippocampus connection here. So, hippocampus, the sole output fibers is the fornix, okay. So, you can observe here the fornix, okay, it relays in the mammillary body. So, from the mammillary body, it is through the mammillothalamic tract, goes to the anterior nucleus of thalamus, okay, and it is also connected to the septal area, okay. So, from this anterior nucleus of thalamus, it goes to the cingulate gyrus, okay. So, in the Papez circuit, so what we see is same thing comes back from the cingulate gyrus, it comes back to the hippocampus, okay. And here you can see the parts of the fornix, okay. You can see the fornix where it is the fimbria continues as fornix, divides into two cruras, okay. So, then it is united to form the body, then again divides to form the columns, okay, and then end at the mammillary body, okay. So, this the fusion where it forms the body, it is just below the body of the corpus callosum, okay. And this is what is the Papez circuit we were discussing about. So, from the hippocampus to the mammillary body to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, cingulate gyrus, and back to the hippocampus. That is in the mainly plays a major role in the recent memory, okay. So, then as we know, the limbic system is an integration of olfactory, visceral and somatic impulses, emotional aspect of behavior, the fear and anger, and it is necessary for survival like procuring food and eating. It is also necessary for survival of species and the sexual behavior, and it is also important in the recent memory. So, that is why any of this region is affected. So, then we have all the signs and symptoms. So, we should be able to locate, looking at the signs and symptoms, where the pathology is at. Thank you.